how many times when we meet people nowadays, you just ask them, hi, tell me a little bit about yourself. What is the first thing that you start talking about? It's not like, oh, my interests and hobbies are this and that. You say, I am, and here you state your
Yes.
company position or what you do as a, business work. This is
It's
the first thing where people meet each other. This is the first thing that comes to your mind.
it's kind of like, I guess, if I was to, if I was a doctor or a paramedic and I saw somebody pass out on the ground, would I just step over them? No, I'm going to go straight to them because it's my internal instinct. That's what I do, right? And it's kind of this, I guess, mentally, it's the same thing. Is where do we draw that line from having a personal life and being able to relax and be ourselves versus always being on and focused on results, or focused on business, focused on how people are doing things and how things should be.
Hello and welcome, and thank you for tuning in to Habits of Influence, a project by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly aspects of building a movement, and hopefully provide insight, as well as motivation for your business journey. Through the combined expertise of 34 years in business, your hosts, Magdalena Hanna and Ian Menheimer, are here to empower and indirectly mentor you whilst you become the person others wish to follow. Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Habits of Influence, where we meet every single week with my co-host,
Ian Manheimer.
and we discuss all things business and life, all the good, the bad, and the ugly sides of being an entrepreneur. And what does that mean for you? How can you become stronger? How can you become the person that is going to build a massive movement of people that love to follow you and able to sustain your normal life, your sanity, and just essentially enjoying your journey as opposed to stressing out? And talking about stressing out, Ian, I wanted to talk about quite a sad situation that happened recently, and it was around a person who worked for a massive company, a corporation called Bed Bath and Beyond. I'm sure you've heard of the company, very well known in the United States, and sadly it has ended very badly for the CFO of the company. It's been recently all around the news. I'm sure you're going to tell me because I'm not from the United States. I did see a bit of footage. I did do a little bit of research on the company itself and on the situation. But tell me, did you see things happening in the news recently where you are based?
Honestly, I don't even watch the news. I mean, I know we had talked previously. The article you sent me, I did read that, and definitely a tragic situation.
Yeah.
And I believe it's kind of something that I don't want to say is all too familiar, but it is a little too familiar in this, not in this industry, but when we're diving into a business head first, and just sometimes the stress just becomes so overwhelming, and it's hard to juggle, it's hard to manage, it's hard to balance, and sometimes it is just too much, and some people just can't handle it.
So yeah, and that's exactly, something that I wanted to discuss, because a lot of the times it's a case of us giving all of ourselves to our business, basically just creating an identity around of what we do, and essentially kind of losing of who we are as human beings. Have you noticed that amongst your people, the environment that you're in?
I could say I'm even guilty of that myself. I get so wrapped up sometimes in my business ventures that I'm the face of my company. Everywhere I go, I represent that, and sometimes it is hard to separate, because you spend so much time building up, at least for me, in our community. I built up this reputation, and this level of excellence, and I always look at it, whenever I'm out, as not just myself, but I'm also representing my company. So am I acting in accordance with what I would want reflected on my company? Am I supporting causes that I want my company supported or not supporting causes that I wouldn't want my company surrounded with. Um, how I carry myself, and it's not just as an individual. I mean, there's the whole, that's the whole another topic of how I carry myself as an individual. But so often I'm stuck into, even when I go to events, sometimes it's hard for me to relax because I'm so focused on, when I'm doing events, I'm like watching things, I'm scoping for safety, I'm making sure things are done right. So when I, even when I go to an event on my own, it's hard for me to relax, even if my company's not involved with it. It's hard for me just to sit back and relax and just enjoy where I'm at. Sometimes I'm getting much better at it. There was a period of time where I couldn't do that at all. I was like, but um, sometimes it's really difficult to separate what we do every day. It's kind of like, I guess, if I was to, if I was a doctor or a paramedic and I saw somebody pass out on the ground, would I just step over them? No, I'm going to go straight to them because it's my internal instinct. That's what I do, right? And it's kind of this, I guess mentally it's the same thing, as where do we draw that line from having a personal life and being able to relax and be ourselves versus always being on and focused on results, or focused on business, focused on how people are doing things and how things should be.
Yeah, I completely agree. But you know what? I actually do advise to the people I work with to be purposeful in whatever they do for their business. And by which I mean is trying to look at everyday things and essentially taking all the good aspects or things that you notice or things that grab your attention and kind of trying to transfer them into your business. And I think that's a great skill to have, because we essentially get better in our business by being influenced and inspired by a vast array of things, not just, being blindly focused on what is the topic of our business, but generally getting inspired with everything that happens around us. But hey, is the kicker. That's great to have that skill, but you also have to have that skill of separating your normal life from your business life and knowing where is that line, like you said? Where is the end of me as a business owner and the beginning of me as a, I don't know, mother, father, friend, daughter, son, whoever else, a normal person? Bear in mind how many times when we meet people nowadays, you just ask them, hi, tell me a little bit about yourself. What is the first thing that you start talking about? It's not like, oh, my interests and hobbies are this and that. You say, I am, and here you state your
Yes.
company position or what you do as a, business work. This is
It's,
the first thing where people meet each other. This is the first thing that comes to your mind. Is that our identity? Is that something that is inherently, us? Or is it just a part of us? And distinguishing how to separate one and the other, that's the skill. That's the thing that we should be mindful of, I think.
well, it's so funny you mentioned that because I used to go to a lot of networking events, and that's exactly what people do. And I'm so the opposite of that. I I never mention my company. I'm always like, what information would you like? Are you asking about my hobbies, about my interests? What is it you want to know? When they say, tell me about yourself. Like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, oh, that's not who I am. Because it's not. Yes, it is a part of me. Yes, it is my identity. Yes, it's my business, all that stuff. However, it's not how I introduce myself. I don't say, oh, hi, I'm Ian, I'm the owner of the, no, I don't ever do that.
I mean,
You know,
when you're at networking events, maybe just maybe it would be a good idea to actually talk about what you do, because they are good, and they are essentially,
but
places
it's just
or work
it is
meetings.
true. But I really like the idea of separating and just be
Mm,
like, what information is important to you right now? You know, what what is it you're looking for? Because I am more than just my business. I am a
absolutely.
father. I'm a grandfather. I like nature. I like going out on my Harley. I like to go to the mountains. I like, there's a lot of things I enjoy that have nothing to do with my business,
Yeah.
nothing to do with it.
And I,
And it's
and I
just,
really envy
go
you,
ahead.
to be quite fair, because I've fallen trap to just being my business. My business
It's
being a
easy to
part of my
do.
life, my hobby, my passion, my everything, my only topic of discussion. So it's great that you have that distinction of, I'm more than my business.
Well, I think what happens, And it's very common, especially as an early entrepreneur, as a solopreneur, as a small business. You have to do everything. So you are the face of the company. You are in the company. You are the marketing. You are the one replying to the emails. You are the one answering the phones. And there's only so much time in the day. So when we start to scale, when we start to get to a point where we could release some of that, is I think when we start to see that separation a little bit more. I guarantee you, if you're to talk to my kids, they would say, I mean, I don't know. I really worked hard when my kids were growing up to give them time, but there were times where they didn't see me because I would go to work because I was working full time. I was teaching, and then I would come home and when they're doing baseball, we go to baseball practice, get home from baseball practice, make dinner. After dinner, I'd go on, either help them with their homework or go on my computer, and they'd want to like play or watch a TV show or do something. I'm like, yeah, as soon as I get done with these emails, and then next thing I know, they were asleep. And it's like, crap, I missed that opportunity, and it's so hard to find that balance. And like, when do I cut off? When do I stop doing this so I can focus on this? And creating that separation, it is extremely difficult, especially when you're trying to grow, when you're trying to scale, when you're trying to build, when you're trying to get traction. And then you start to get that traction. It's like, well, I've got to keep up, because if I don't do it tomorrow, I'm gonna have twice as much. And you get stuck in this rut. So it is such a fine, delicate trick to master. It is really difficult.
It is. And sometimes people go too far. And the example that we are discussing today, Gustavo Arnal, the CFO of Bed Bath and Beyond, is a great example. Even though this is like I said, a large company, he was an employee of the company, but managerial position, right? So the thing is, I have my own opinion about a thing, and in a second I'm going to pull up an article from the New York Post just for you and I to discuss the situation. But basically, the gist of this story was that he was extremely overworked, overstretched with what he had to do for the company. Of course, we were going to discuss the company had financial trouble since the pandemic, and there's been a crash with the stock value, a lot of things happening, lawsuits and stuff like that, without going into too much detail because we will be seeing this in a moment. The guy has been basically the face of all of this going down, right? Even though he was not the company owner, he just had the shares of the company, but he was not the owner of the company. But even though he was not, he was given his heart and soul and all of himself to his company, right? And because of that, today a person is gone, a family, his wife and his kids are left behind without a dad and a husband. And my question is that necessary? Is that, where's that line where it's too far? I know it's a tricky thing. I know we don't always practice what we preach in terms of I should have boundaries, I should put this much in my business, but not too much at all because I have my normal life and so on and so on. Just this situation, and this is just a very loud case that everybody knows about. But there's multiple cases like that happening every single day with less known people, with entrepreneurs, everyday entrepreneurs who are either losing their mind, from overwhelm and just being overworked because they don't know how to manage their time, or because their identity is only being a business owner. So they give way too much of themselves to the company, to the employer, to the business, essentially. So that is my point. That is what I wanted to discuss today. The reason why I also wanted to undertake this topic and to talk to you about how much is too much is you're a person of many skills, many talents, and a multipreneur, meaning that you have two companies already. You have had massive experience with working with a team, working as a CEO, creating something of your own. In fact, you're actually just acquiring another business. Tell me, how do you juggle all those things, and give a little bit of advice to our audience how to make sure that you have time to all of those ventures, but at the same time, like you said, be a dad, be a granddad, be a friend, have time to do all the things that you love to do, date, I don't know, just doing normal stuff as a normal human being. And like you said, knowing how to detach yourself from, okay, this is not what defines me.
I guess the best, for a long time I struggled with it. I think I'm at a point now where I'm learning to delegate responsibilities. I don't have to take it all on. I've gotten to a point where I don't have to make every sale. I don't have to do every event. You know, I'm not turning, I have turned people away because I'm like, we're just too busy. We don't want to add this to our schedule. And I think it's just really coming down to, as you start to scale, as you start to grow, being able to remove yourself and say, okay, how can I step back as the boss, as the owner, as whatever title you have, and allow other people to start doing it? And when you're a small business or an, small company, it is so hard to do that because it's our baby, it's our vision. We are the ones like, oh, this is my thing. And we have what we want, we have our passion, we have our integrity, we have our value system, we have what we want our company to represent, and we start handing that over to other people. They may not uphold that, and you may have some mistakes that happen, you may have learning curves, you may have some growing pains, and you are going to have growing pains, you're going to have learning curves. Nothing is going to go perfectly smoothly, and a lot of it comes down to the training aspect and feeling comfortable with your crew that they're going to be able to take care of whatever you need to take care of. So for me, where I'm at in my journey is I'm at the point where I'm starting to delegate. I'm starting to remove myself. I don't have to be involved in everything. And I am working on training people to not so much replace me, but to act as if they're in my shoes. I want them to make decisions. That way I would make decisions. So that comes down to coaching them, comes down to training them on how I think and why I think the way I do. It's not just about, oh, we do X, Y, Z, this is the order. It's why do we do it this way? Is it because of safety? Is it because of this protocol? Is it because that's what makes the route flow smooth? How does it work best for the organization, not just Ian's perception? And I'm open to other people's ideas. And I welcome other thoughts. And I think it really just comes down to, for me, is trusting people to take care of things and allowing myself to say, like the mama bird kicks the bird out of the nest and make sure it flies. It's getting to that point, and it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen super quick, and it's something I still struggle with. And yeah, you mentioned taking on a new business venture, and they always say that if your goals don't scare you, they're not big enough. Well, this scares me. It does, and I'm excited for it. And I'm like, I see so much potential. I'm like, yes. And the reason I'm doing it, I don't know if I shared it with you, but there's a reason I'm starting this new venture, and I'm using it as a tool. Two words that resonate with me are impact and legacy. And I really want to leave a legacy. And I see this new business venture as a way that I can be more involved in my community, a way I can give more, a way that I can create a lifestyle that I can pass down after I'm gone. And that's been my goal with my whole entrepreneurial journey. I started my business with the intention that when my kids get old enough, they're going to have something they can walk into and either take over or not have to go, the fast food route. My grandkids down the road, something that will leave a lasting legacy. That's why I started. I wasn't in this to become a millionaire. I wasn't in this to become, I want to be a business owner. That wasn't the reason I started. The reason I started was I want to have an impact on my family. I want to create something that could be multi-generational. And the way to do that is to create something that's going to have a system, and where I can create that balance, where I don't have to be front and center all the time, where I can separate and take the time to spend and build it up so that I can say, hey, you know what, this weekend I'm not working, and I'm going to spend, I actually did that last weekend. I went to both my grandson's birthday party and my cousin's kid's birthday party. I didn't work one day over the weekend. That was so weird for me. I'm like, is there something wrong? Like,
Well, for a fact that I don't work any weekends. And coming back to what you've been talking about, yeah, it's a choice. Just to sum it up, it's a choice. But coming back to what you've been talking about, a lot of people don't realize that. And I remember specifically a story of my own when I was first getting into coaching and starting my consulting business. I said, when somebody asked me why you're opening up another business, because as you know, I do have an e-commerce brand and I was really involved in it. And somebody asked me, why are you opening up another one? Well, I said, well, to have more time. So everybody looked at me like I was crazy because no one understood that. That's it, right? The more sources of income you build, even regardless if it's not your goal, for the millions or whatever, the money, the more businesses you open up, essentially the more opportunities you have to not be inside of that business. So one is actually fueling the other, and it's much easier to build a team around those businesses and just go with it. So the more you build, the more time, which is funny, the more time you actually free up in the process. And the only mistake people can make is going into another business too quick, because that will essentially give you lots and lots of work. That's why it is always advisable that you build one business, you build it to a stage where it's self-sustainable, or at least running itself most of the time, and then you build another source of income. That's what the rich and famous are talking about as well, isn't it? But yeah, just my point, just my 2 cents. I wanted to say, sometimes opening up another business can actually free up your time more, surprisingly. Surprise, surprise.
That's true. And coming back, thought of the quote that I was thinking of earlier, which was along the lines of if who I am is based on what I have and what I have is lost, then what am I? That was
Mm,
the point I was trying to make earlier.
yeah.
Because at any moment, we can lose what we have. We can lose the cars. We can get into a car accident. Our house can burn down. Our business can go out of business. Anything can happen at any time. If our life is focused and our life is centered around what we have, not who we are, our values, who we want to be, the way we carry ourselves, our character. If it's focused solely on what we have, then we're definitely doing something wrong.
Mm. And here you are. It's a great entry to show what I wanted to show to our audience. Is, I think it's a precaution and something that we should be talking about, because there are situations, like I said, where you do take that step, one step too far, and it might lead to, well, the worst possible consequences, right? And in this case, and I'm going to pull up that article that I was talking about. In this case, it was the ultimate final consequence, right? You can't think of anything worse that could happen. A family left without a dad, a wife left without a husband, and it was a very young person. He was 52. And now what I wanted to discuss is the reasons, because obviously, like I said, there was a lot going on. A very, very big company. The person that we're talking about, Gustavo Arnal, he was a CFO of Bed Bath and Beyond. And essentially what I think caused it was just mainly giving too much of himself to the company. And what shows, you can see in the article here, it's an article by New York Post, he was working 18-hour a day. He was actually considering taking a leave in the weeks before he offed himself. And he didn't get a chance to do that. But not only that, there was a lot of things that I think the company owners have did wrong, because they essentially, this is just my opinion, speculation alert, okay? This is just my personal opinion. I kind of treated him like a scapegoat. He became the face of all of the financial problems of the company, all of the things that were happening with the stock market, with the value of the stocks of Bed Bath and Beyond. And essentially, there was a lot of pressure, a lot of stress put on the guy. So yeah, a sad situation where you lose yourself as a human being. You forget that there are, essentially, you should have priorities which are not your business, which are not your company, which are not you giving your whole to something that might or might not work out. Because our business, it can leave a great legacy, like you're saying, you want to build a legacy, but it can also crash in a day. And what then? And this goes back fantastically. That's why I said that's a perfect moment to actually do it right after your quote. If it falls through, who are you? What happens? Is that the end of you as a human being? Or you're going to be like, essentially what the article says in the very end is that new CEOs, a new CFO has already been appointed by the CEOs of Bed Bath and Beyond. The stocks are suddenly now going up in price again because that is essentially the reality of the stock market, right? There's a sudden influx of interest in a company, which indicates, obviously, as a result, also puts the price up of the stocks themselves. But we've got a person gone. And what now?
Yeah, and you brought up something that it triggered a thought for me, which is goes along the lines of, especially when you work for other people, and it's in the work environment, we're all replaceable. It takes like if you were to leave whatever job you're in, they will have a replacement for you pretty quick. It's getting a little more difficult nowadays because the work and everything is a little bit different. But like you just said, with this situation, they've already replaced them. And how many years was he with the company?
It
It's
didn't
like,
say that, but it said that he actually joined, I think, around when the company started going down. So around end of 2020, 2021. So
oh,
not
gotcha.
long. The
So not
company was
too
already
long.
having financial trouble because you see, that's the most interesting part. The company was already, the problems was already exacerbated by the pandemic, and the company's value has already, and the company has already lost in value. I think there was somewhere in the article that said that when he took over, it was already 17 times less than what it was previously. So it's not a case of, there you go, he took the job in May of 2020. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was already in financial difficulties, in financial trouble. So putting him as a scapegoat. Why I chose this is because he was in a managerial position. So he had a say in all of this, even though he was working for someone else. It was a high enough position, a position that allowed him to have a say. As CFO is an important person in the company. Let's not kid ourselves, right? All of the financial decisions are not made without that person. It's not a case of like, this is just a mere employee that you can replace. And that is
Well,
specifically my point.
yeah, and I guess for me, when I'm thinking about this, just in general, doesn't matter if you're an employee, doesn't matter if you're an owner, doesn't matter if you're a manager. When you commit 100% to something, it's why life is too short. When we put all of our eggs in one basket and that basket breaks, it's just one of those things where I just feel like we have to learn to separate and honor ourselves and learn where that balance is, and being able to take that. I don't even know how to put it. But yeah, it's just, I see stuff like this, and it's at any minute our life can change. Any minute, things can be stripped away, or we can lose that job. We can, like I said, we can lose whatever. And knowing it's good to commit. It's good to be all in, but not to the point where you're ready to drive yourself crazy. Nothing in life is worth that much for us to lose our sanity. Nothing is worth, you know, as you've mentioned, the ultimate sacrifice. Nothing is worth that, and being able to say when to punch out, so to say, when to recharge, when to reset. And
Yeah.
I go back to my one of my favorite quotes is that people don't get burnt out from doing too much. They get burnt out by not doing enough of the things that make them feel alive. So um my encouragement for anybody listening would be, make sure no matter what role you have, no matter what job you have, no matter where you're at, take time to refuel, take time to re-energize, take time to find those things that make you feel alive, grab onto them, hold onto them, love them, and do them as much as you possibly can. Spend time with the kids, give them hugs, love them, kiss them, and everything else will move on. Everything else, you know, the world continues to spin whether we're part of it or not.
Yeah. Yeah, and what hit me in the article as I was reading it, when I was researching the whole the whole case, the whole situation is this sentence over here. He was apparently at dinner with a group of friends a few weeks before the whole situation happened, and his friend has described him as he's the sort of guy who carries the world on his shoulders. And how often do we hear, and we are almost taught to just, put that mask, that facade of us being super strong, unshakable. And as business owners, especially, there's a huge emphasis being put on you need to be strong in order to survive in business, right? You have to have a flexible spine and a strong will in order to really be able to succeed in business. And we hear that from people who teach others on how to actually do business. A lot of times, I don't know if you've heard, I've heard it nonstop. We just need to show this almost superhero version of ourselves, that we are untouchable, that nothing happens to us. It is just in the recent years that we started talking about mental health. And actually, when I started talking about entrepreneurial mental health a couple of years ago, there was just a handful of people who really acknowledged that. Everybody was, aiming for the hustle, the grind, the nothing can actually get me, give it all yourself, fail forward, all of those lines that were perpetuated for years and years and years, they have led to us thinking that we really have to give 200% out of ourselves to our businesses. And this is just, the aftermath of that sort of thinking, because it's fairly new that we are talking about mental health, that we are talking about the boundaries, that we are talking about me first and my business. If my business fails, so what? I will build another one based on my expertise. Of course it's gonna hurt. Come on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's
and
not
there
the
are
end of the
times,
world. And this
and
is.
there are times where you're going to have to make sacrifices and go that 200% and have sleepless nights and go days without eating. It,
Yeah.
it does happen. It just can't be sustained long term. I'm not saying never to grind and hustle, and no, there's going to be times where you have to do that. There's going to be times where you just have to make that decision, say, okay, I've stuff has to get done. I'm the one that has to do it, period. It's just being cognizant enough to say, when do I stop? When do I take that break? When do I take care of me? Because the reality is, you're going to be more productive. You're going to be happier. You're going to do a better job. Your business will grow if you're taking care of yourself. If you're not, then you're going to struggle, and you're going to continue to struggle. If you don't take that time out to rejuvenate, to recharge, to take care of yourself, either it's going to happen to you. I'll just be a jerk to myself for a second here. So you're going to happen to you, one way, by the rug being swept out from under you, or you end up with a health issue. Last year I was diagnosed with cancer. Shit happens. Excuse my language. Yeah, things are going to happen. And I think it really comes down to learning to balance, learning to take care of yourself on top of the business, and putting yourself and your family and everything else. It's really important first, because everything else is replaceable.
Yeah,
Then
health
that's
is
the
not.
reality. If I was to die today, I'm not replaceable.
Yeah.
My kids can't just magically get another father or another grandfather.
Yeah. By the way,
Yeah.
YouTube, everybody's safe and happy and healthy. So, yeah, just bear that in mind. Yeah. So, yeah, for anybody now coming back, because this is obviously a very serious topic, guys, if you are feeling unwell with yourself, or you're feeling that potentially you might drive yourself to the point of wanting to make some ultimate decisions, we are going to actually leave all the relevant numbers and contacts for you, for people that you can speak with in order to help yourself to feel better. So these are all going to be posted in our about section in the description of the video. So do look at that, please, and look after yourself, guys. And the last thing I wanted to say, yeah, being productive doesn't mean driving yourself to the point of insanity. And that is why I wanted to bring this specific situation, because like I said, this is not just an individual, one-off situation that happened, and it doesn't happen every day. It does happen every day, just not every single case is going to be as loud. But this just goes to show, and the statistics, if you read them, are just insane, of how more and more stressed and anxious we are year by year, and especially in the group of entrepreneurs. These are some staggering numbers, so I would encourage you to check that out. But we are talking about 2/3 of society being, extremely stressed. And if you need a helping hand, we have actually prepared a wonderful resource for you. This is one of my resources that I give to my clients as a productivity coach. Like I said, there are ways to boost your productivity without busting your back and without sacrificing your life. Those are 5 easy things that you can actually incorporate in your daily life, in your business, that can help you skyrocket your productivity without putting in too much of your time or straining yourself as a human being. So the information should be on the screen right now at the very bottom. Go grab your free resource. It will also be added to our about section, so please look out for that. And yeah, I think that's where we should end, guys. Like Ian said, there are things that are always replaceable, but this is not your health, this is not your family, this is not your well-being, whether it is physical or mental. And this is something that we should be mindful about, even though this is a tricky thing. And those lines, they kind of fluctuate, right? They're not set in stone, because you need to everybody's different. You need to know yourself, and we do know ourselves, we just don't pay attention a lot of the times. What is our breaking point? What is that moment where you should say, hold on a moment, I think I should slow down, I think I should stop, I think I should retract for a little bit, just for my sanity. And that's what we're all about here in Habits of Influence. Knowing when to stop and knowing when to go full on. Like you said, there are times where you go full on, absolutely, because you have to, but also knowing when to slow down, to recoup and to recharge your batteries. I think this is one of the most important things us entrepreneurs need to learn. And I hope that you will be more mindful from now on, um, with all of that, all of the things that we are discussing here. Ian?
I think you summed it up well. I'm good.
I'm talkative today. That's because I've been gone for quite a while. But yeah, I hope that it's going to help somebody. Remember, guys, to share this episode with anyone that you think could really use this information right now. There's a lot of people that are suffering in silence, a lot of people that could use an understanding friend, or a bit of advice to help them on their journey. I am not going to say subscribe to our channel, even though obviously, guys, the algorithm favors those that are being watched, those that are being subscribed to. And I think this podcast is awesome, and lots of entrepreneurs should see it. But of course, it's up to you. I hope that you're enjoying the episodes. If so, do remember to leave a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of us, click that notification bell, subscribe, share it with others. We are actually doing something exciting very soon. As the numbers grow, I have decided with Ian that we are going to do some prizes, but we do need to see them numbers grow. So let's say for now, let's say we're going to be ambitious, and we're going to ask you to give us at least 25 likes on this video and share it with your friends. So, and let's see where this goes. I think it's worth it. I hope you think it's worth it too. And stay safe, look after yourself. You are the most important. Your identity is yourself, not your business.